let us do some myth busting, because there's a few myths that come through, and I kind of want to pick a few of them up. So one of the first ones is that one that comes up quite. These are in no particular order. One that comes up quite regularly, and if you can think of other level boarding myths, drop them in here, by the way, because it's always fun to add new ones to the list. But one of the key ones that we often get is you can introduce level boarding trains until you fix the platforms. Very common myth, absolute nonsense. Only in very rare situations will you have a platform that will be tight and high, if you want to use the lingo, that would foul the gauge and therefore cause a problem for level boarding for low floor trains. The good thing about low floor trains, the gap filler, is that they actually have more space down at platform level because they don't have the permanent footstep. So they're actually more gauge friendly in that sense. The gap filler then shoots out and gives that, so it's a much tidier solution actually from a gauging perspective. In those rare situations where you do have that clash, where you have a high and a tight platform, for example, on where you've had electrification been done on the cheap and they've lowered the track, you might have a high and tight platform. Well, in that situation, the platform needs working on anyway. Even if you could procure a normal train, that platform would work. So that argument falls down flat. Next myth. I should have a dinger, shouldn't I? Wait a minute. Let's get the old dinger up. The next one, that providing level boarding will cause problems for freight clearance. That's also wait a minute, you know what? It's actually worth me waiting until the soundboard comes up, because you all want the soundboard. I want the soundboard. You want the soundboard. Let's go. Why didn't I have it booted up at the start? Because I'm a bundle of chaotic, staggering energy at the moment. It's all good. Wait a minute. Let me just make sure that there we go. There we go. Global parameters. Let's put this down to 40 so it's not too loud. Right. So, freight wagon clearance. No, freight wagon clearance is not a problem at all. Freight wagon clearance, if you're putting the platforms to standard offsets, any train in the UK that is gauge cleared to pass anywhere will be safe to pass that platform. Any train at all. If it's not, it's an out of gauge train and it would have to have its own process anyway. But if you're setting the platforms to the correct position, you can achieve level boarding on any radius of platform down to about 360 meters, which is extremely tight, by the way. Anything above the radius of 360 meters, so that's most of the network, like most of the network, 98% or 99% of platforms, you can achieve level boarding, and also all freight can pass it. All combinations of freight can pass. That's just not a problem. Another one is, what is it? You can't... there's, because you have different trains, different stopping positions, different types of train that you can't achieve level boarding. That's a nope, because level boarding the whole point of level boarding is you have a standard platform position, which means that any train, it doesn't matter what types of train, they're all different types of train, will be using a standard platform position. An interesting sort of side myth about this was in the response to the suggestion that why LNER couldn't procure level boarding trains. The answer came back, well, because our platforms are in so many different places, among other things. And of course, that is not true, because every single LNER platform has just been corrected for the IETs. So nope, all those platforms are really rather correct, and this is certainly true in Scotland, where the majority of platforms have actually been corrected to the standard position. You're bearing in mind the majority of platforms are in electrified areas. Actually, it doesn't take much to basically get on top of the platform question, and there are always problem platforms that are extremely low. They can be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. Ideally, you'd have a rolling program which deals with those tricky platforms and some of the easy ones, and works its way around the country or around a given region and solves the problem. But that's a problem that should just have a funding pot to be solved, and it shouldn't be, AFA should not be its own thing, level boarding shouldn't be its own thing. Those are two things that should have a big pool of money, and you should be doing all of that work, and not saying, well, this is how much money we have. No, you just say, we will keep doing this every year, this is our annual budget, and we'll deliver as much as we can within that annual budget, and that annual budget will stay in place, inflated every year as required, until we've solved the problem. What's another one that's fun? This can't be delivered on curved platforms. No, that's absolutely not true. It can be delivered on curved platforms, as I say, down to the radius of 360 meters. So that's very, very tight. Gap fillers are the way that you solve that problem. And you can see those gap fillers in action on the Stadler trains. But the gap filler is a little thing that goes choop, when the train is actually stopped. What's another one? This can't be done on high-speed trains. Stadler have built a long-distance fast train. And yes, that thing is limited to 100 and whatever miles an hour. It shows that you can absolutely deliver a level boarding solution on fast trains. It's absolutely achievable. Suggestions to the contrary is daft. It can't be done on diesel trains. Wrong. Stadler's 755s, the regional ones. I might be getting the 745s and 755s confused. But Greater Anglia's regional trains that currently are running now, for example, to stations like Great Yarmouth, they have a thunderbox. No, that's not right. That's a toilet in Australia. They have a thrash box. The little funny box on wheels that gives them diesel power, and they achieve level boarding. So, no, it can be done. I'm not saying that's always the way you do it, but it shows that it can be done. An interesting one that I've had raised by someone else I've clashed with on safety matters, suggesting that he doesn't understand risk at all, is on the fact that actually if you provide level boarding, it's less safe than if you have a step, because people don't notice the little tiny gap and they might fall over. Utter gibberish. What? Just complete nonsense. And extremely exclusive on who is traveling. It's just utter rubbish. The other one, like, the only way that you can get level boarding is by raising platforms. No. If you're raising platforms because the platform is low and you're raising it to the correct position, well, yes, that is actually correct. Yes. But if you are talking about raising the platform to meet existing train steps, that's an enormous, because that means that you're raising the platform into a position where it absolutely will clash with freight and impact the gauge, which is why Crossrail and Thameslink solutions were such a calamity, and HS2s as well, were such a calamity, because actually what they did was prevent level boarding from ever being achieved on those two systems without major reconstruction in the central section. Actually, for Thameslink, it's not so hard. You just get rid of the little hump. But for Crossrail, where the entire platform has been set very high in the central section tunnels, that is going to be very, very expensive to fix. And I think, you know what? I think that's a sufficient volume of myth busting that we've done there. So, good question from Microna above. Right, I was going to say let's go through some of these questions. So let's see. Raphael Nicolaus is saying Talgo low floor trains being introduced in Germany with the ICL and Denmark, and Flixtrain. Germany ordered them too. Let's see if they actually take them indeed. What about curved platforms like Newcastle? I think, Ryan, we've covered that one. Let's see. Right, Microna. So, just joined, so this might have been answered already, but why do British loading gauges have an overhang at like 1,000 millimeters height, below which width is reduced to begin with? Well, it's really about how our loading gauge kind of grew, really. So we had stuff that was like bridges, for example, which we knew that we had center girders and all sorts of things that were up to a certain height of around about 1,000 to 1,100. So actually, specifically, it's still that 1,100. That's lower sector. But about to that height, that meant that, and you know, for a very long time, so whatever it would have been, you know, a yard or something that we had structure heights up to, that trains were generally above that. They were kind of narrow and we didn't have to worry about it. But so at the bottom, that was the main limiting factor, and so that was that's why trains have that shape. But as we then realised, well, okay, what space do we have above? Well, we've got a little bit more. Can we start hogging some of that to make the passenger cabin a bit wider and get wider freight? And so the reason it balloons out from that point is because of the fact that you have you've got the tumble down shape as well, and then you've got that narrower bit in lower sector, but the upper sector bulges out to make the most of the space that we actually have. Well, you know, the actual infrastructure space that we have, the loading gauge on our railway. So that's kind of why it does that funny bulge, is to the fact that we've got lots of stuff, not just platforms, but also center girders of bridges and things that are very narrow and close to the infrastructure at kind of the width of the bogies. But we don't have those restrictions higher up, so the train gets a little bit fatter around there, and that allows us to fit those, you know, the seats in and things. That's kind of why that is that shape. It's a good question. Thanks, Microna. Very, very good question. Raphael Nicolaus Talgo's train is currently being rolled out in Germany at 230 kilometers an hour. Of course, in mainland Europe, it's a little bit different because they do have a lot larger loading gauge, so they can put equipment above the train, on the top of the train that we can't. So that's why the question's a little bit different in the UK as to what we can, or GB, what we can achieve because of our restrictive loading gauge. But so. Michael C. The platform at North Road Station today was ridiculously low, so that would definitely need to be raised. But as you point out, this should be done as a rolling program. Yes, Michael C. Absolutely.